Views is an interesting and hotly debated album in the discography of Drake. Before his last 5 projects in recent years, most people had it battling it out in his top 3 albums, but now, who knows? In this video, I just want to talk about it and appreciate it, give it its flowers, and hopefully inspire you to go back and give it a re-listen, or maybe even listen to it for the first time. Views from the 6, or more simply Views, was released on May 6, 2016 as Drake's 4th studio album. It has some major hits from Controller to One Dance to Too Good to Hotline Bling, amassing around 6 billion plays on Spotify between those tracks alone. The entire album feels and sounds like an ode to Toronto. With the CN Tower on the cover art and as Drake overlooks his city, it's seemingly inspired by the city's vast and diverse musical culture, its harsh and dreary winters, but also its hot summers and Caribbean heritage. The album's sequenced in a way that takes you through the seasons of the city in a cyclical or year-long way that begins with frosty winds and snowfall, finds the heat of the summer in the middle, before returning to the cold, which is warmed by Drake's heartfelt vocals on Fire and Desire and the self-titled track Views. With the eclectic combination of dancehall, Afro beats, and that Caribbean influence with the mix of Drake and 40's Toronto sound, the album has a range of vibes and genres to pique and say everyone's interests, but also marks one of the first times that Drake was able to explore and experiment with a selection of worldly sounds and styles on his own. Coming off the back of 2 mixtapes that were ample club bangers and strong rap performances, and If You're Reading This and What a Time, Drake asked himself, what does a cohesive, incredible listening experience from him sound like at this point in his career? Being a few years removed from an undeniable classic in Nothing Was the Same, Drake wanted to offer another full body of work that encapsulates his artistic versatility, but also seals his legacy and proudly represents his city. In what he called his highest level of vocal performance to date, Views from the 6 contrast the 2 extremes of the city, which mirrors his duality as an artist, one who's capable of singing with emotion and rapping with purpose. At the end of the day, I'm just a guy who likes music, so what did the real professionals who are paid to enjoy and critique music say about Views? It's fair to say they didn't love it. An aggregator site, Any Decent Music, compiled and assessed its general critical reception and gave it a 6.7 out of 10. Most of the reviews speak negatively about its length, calling it bloated and wearying. Other critics called it the work of an inconsistent talent, desperately in need of a new muse, and ultimately underwhelming and unpersuasive. They warned Drake if he doesn't find a new sound and a way of pulling people in, his future will look bleak. While these reviews play down his signature style and downbeat introspection, I look at these things as reasons why I love Drake and not angles to shoot him down for. His deep, personal, yet often oddly relatable lyrics are a large reason why he became as popular as he did and eventually was known as the artist of the decade. So yeah, I guess I'm taking the role of the Views defender, but it's not to argue or convince you that Views is good and that you should like it. I just like it, and these are some reasons why. With that being said, I'll always be a proponent of enjoying music and not looking for reasons to shit on it. If you don't like it, that's fine. Not all music is meant for you. We all have different tastes, and every artist has a creative itch that they're trying to scratch. Let's appreciate what we're given and what we like. There's plenty more music out there for all of us to enjoy. With that being said, I'm going to tell you about my favorite things about Views and why it's an album I'll always love. Let's start from the beginning. Keep the family close. And while in the interest of not making this video too long, I don't want to touch on and cover every single song. This one deserves a mention as this deeply atmospheric and almost orchestral track sets the scene for the winter and frigidity to come. It's also one of Drake's most unique songs. Even to this day, I can't compare it to another of his and say, oh yeah, it reminds me of that. It's distinctively its own and it sets the general mood to come as we brave the Toronto cold and step into the project. It also starts a great run of tracks that make up the first winter and season of the project as we get into 9, You With Me, and Feel No Ways. Talking about You With Me in particular, that is without a doubt my favorite song on the album and is somewhere high up on my list of all-time favorite Drake songs too. It just has everything. A clean beat graced with 40's brilliance, a catchy hook that's perfectly sampled, melodies and clever bars that offer a mix of rapping Drake and singing Drake, and a dope bridge sort of switch up that completes the song and crescendos it perfectly. As we progress through the winter, it's capped off with the Marvin's Room of Views, Redemption, another one of my favorites. The frozen winds billow through the record, reinforcing Drake's emotional introspection as he processes old flames and finds a perhaps misguided reprieve from it through his undeniable popularity and mainstream success, which makes him impossible to ignore. This sort of manic and spiteful view of failed love can be so relatable for people and immediately takes me back to bus rides to school, headphones in, and somehow convincing myself that I was feeling it wholeheartedly. But that's the effect that his music can have for all of us. The sense of relatability, despite how wrong we may be, it feels real, and he provides a conduit to feel that. Speaking to the breadth and variety that this album offers, Drake always tries to check off certain criteria. Emotional, introspective, sad R&B song to put you in your feels? Check. But with that song over, we find ourselves in the warmth of the summer with the first feature of an OVO artist on the project with Party Next Door on With You. I could speak about the good vibes of the song and how perfect it is for a summer's day spent with friends, but I want to talk about the inclusion of OVO sound artists on this project. As someone who's a massive fan of the entire label, I love any time that Drake acknowledges them and collaborates with them, giving them a platform to reach a larger audience and have their talent heard. But to also have that trust from Drake to be on this album is really cool to me. Obviously, being a Toronto-inspired album, it made the world of sense to include its local products, and I think they did themselves proud. I'll always be an advocate for them to be featured on more projects. Not just those who feature on this album, but all of the label mates. Anyway, my hopes and dreams aside, and as faithful follows, I implore everybody who hasn't to listen to Division's Keep the Faith record on SoundCloud for an extended version of the track. It premiered on OVO Sound Radio way back when. It's incredible and well worth the listen. But the summer goes on and this section is ripe with summer hits like Controller, One Dance and Too Good. There's not much to be said about these tracks. I think everybody knows and appreciates how good they are. Speaking of good, the good vibes that are customary of dancehall and Afrobeats tracks are represented extremely well here. These tracks, with One Dance in particular, played a huge part in the global popularization of what is the unique, historically rich, and beloved sound of Caribbean music. As the summer winds down and ends, the album is signposted by back-to-back tracks that perfectly embody Drake's musical duality that I talked about. The first of these two, Fire and Desire, is R&B Drake at a high level, overflowing with emotion, a pensive tone, and a subtle beat. Name a better late-night combo. The album thematically ends with the self-titled track Views, which presents a fitting outro track with Rap Drake and a self-declared favourite style of his. The conversational, life lesson, smooth flow, and rich with lyrical substance way of rapping. Oh, and there's also Hotline Bling. Just like the two extremes of the city, its harsh winters and great summers, Drake flexes his musical versatility and two modes that he's become celebrated for. His various rap flows that range from conversational life lessons to direct, bravado-filled reminders of his success, and his sensitive, heartfelt, and honest R&B side, which is excellently juxtaposed and sometimes fused together with his rhythmic bars and flow that makes him stand out in a very competitive field. Views from the Six is Drake's offering to the city he's a product of, a proud representation of where he's from and what he proudly claims. For us from outside of Toronto, I view this album as a general message to everybody to be proud of where you're from and see the beauty in your own surroundings and upbringing. You can tell that this album was a huge passion project for a kid who grew up in a city known for hate and envy. But over his years away and as his popularity grew, he began to change its narrative. He realized the beauty of the city that birthed him and wanted to pay his respects and claim it proudly with this project, cementing his place as a Toronto legend and leaving a legacy that will and has inspired generations after him. As we wrap up the video here, I think Views' story is pretty cool. From an album that was met with seemingly poor public reception and critical reviews, despite its mainstream success, radio play, and hits, the notion Views was actually pretty good highlights Drake's message to those people all these years later, as the album is now considered slept on and an underrated classic.